very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's edition of The Situation. Now, this week, the world watched in horror as Africans were being mistreated in China. Many of them were thrown out of their accommodations. Many of them were denied access to public places like shops and restaurants. And many of them were seen sleeping on the streets and even brutalized by the Chinese police. They were accused of spreading coronavirus in China. What an irony. Now, to delve deeper into this topic, we have Mr. Nelion Ustad and George Njogu. Gentlemen, the African governments and the Kenyan government in particular have been accused of very lackluster reaction to this situation.
The African government, especially to our Kenyan government, they have really taken no much effort to counter this kind of discrimination. For one, we have our embassy and our ambassador is there, and when this kind of things, outcry is happening, we find that the ambassador is really doing quite minimal job so that he can secure and protect the Kenyans who are in the diaspora. So what we can say is, if the Africans are being mistreated, there is a counter action which the government is supposed to do. That is why we have the embassy, which is responsible for protecting the Africans.
Well, Mr. George, do you think the Kenyan government's response is quite satisfactory?
Well, according to me, I don't think the action that the Kenyan government is taking is enough. It is not enough. Because the reason why we have an ambassador in China is to make sure that the rights of the Kenyan people who are working in China are taken care of. Right now, what we see is Kenyans suffering in China. These Kenyans are there by right. If they are working in China, it means that they have work permit. So they should be taken care of because they are there by right. So I don't think the ambassador, the Kenyan ambassador in China is doing enough for the Kenyan people who are in China. And if it is not her problem, then I think it is the problem of the government as a whole. Because these Kenyan people who are suffering there, they should be taken care of. It's as simple as that.
Well, it is approximated that over 3 million Kenyans, approximately 3 million Kenyans are in the diaspora. And these 3 million Kenyans remit close to 3 billion Kenya shillings annually. And today, the foreign remittance from the Kenyans living abroad is surpassing tea and coffee as the highest foreign earner. So the government should actually really take care of these people very well. Now, this situation definitely has exposed the kind of issues and problems Africans in diaspora face. Mr. Nelion Ustad, what do you think the government should do moving forward?
First thing that we need to counter this kind of problem and to move forward. However much that we want to move forward, we are still finding that the African leaders have not accepted the perception that we Africans can stand on our own. This issue has brought about the other aspect of racism. If racism has really taken root in most of the Western countries, and we're going to see now in China, then you find that Africans are still being discriminated for many other reasons. So the way forward is, first of all, we Africans need to believe in ourselves. We empower our leaders so that we can come up with the human rights, so that we acknowledge that we are having a role to play. Our leaders must move forward and protect the human rights. This is not something that is only in Kenya, in Africa, but we're talking about racism. It's an issue which is global. We have many other incidences in many other countries, like in the US, whereby you find that Africans are really being mistreated and they're being treated as lesser people. So the way forward is to accept we ourselves that we have a way to move on forward.
Well, Mr. Judge, why does the world hate Africans so much?
Before I come to that point, I think I need to add on what Mr. Nelson has said.
Mhm.
And I think the Kenyan government must come up with a foreign policy that is working. Because our government is talking about exporting labor. But does it have a policy that is working for its people? What does this foreign policy say about discrimination? Because if you are exporting labor, it means that we Kenyans who are working abroad, they should be treated the same as any other person working abroad, provided you have the same qualifications. But is it happening? It is an absolute no. So the government must come up with a foreign policy that is working, a policy that is favoring its own people. Because most of the times we find ourselves in a position whereby the kind of job that you're doing, it is the same kind of job that is being done by somebody from Europe, by somebody from US, but the kind of treatment that you are given is totally different from them. So the Kenyan government must come up with a good policy. When they agree with the foreign countries where they are exporting laborers from Kenya, then they need to come up with a policy whereby equality is given the first priority. We must be treated equal. Now, coming to what you are saying about black, I would want to approach it in 2 points. One, what is racist? It is a visible physical difference between people based on some issues like color, some issues like the coloring of hair, some issues like the color of eyes, and so on and so forth. So when you look at a person, you see these kind of differences, then you start, discriminating them according to their geographical backgrounds and all these traits. So black people have been discriminated against from time immemorial because of their skin color, because of their hairstyle, because of the color of their eyes. And some of the traits that have been associated with them, it's like being primitive, being simple-minded, people who are lazy, and sometimes people who are associated with being aggressive, which is not true. So I think the world should wake up and see what this pandemic is giving us. What are some of the lessons that it is giving us? It is giving us some lessons whereby, like China now, it is being shown their true colors, how discriminative they are. Why would you stop African people from going to shopping malls to buy food? That is so inhuman. It has never been heard of. Why should you discriminate your fellow human beings just based on the difference in color? That is so inhuman. I don't think this should happen in the 21st century.
Thank you, Mr. George. Why does the world hate Africans so much? Are we children of a lesser God, Mr. Nelson?
That is the right question to ask. That leads us to what brings about the African discrimination. How does the other world look at Africa? And in this aspect, we're looking at Africa in terms of skin color. When we're talking about African being discriminated, the question is, what are we lacking? Or which criteria are they following to rank people? And who are these behind ranking of people? The question comes about, Africans, they're human beings. The other races, they're also human beings. But this concept, which has been brought about through history during the colonial era, An example is the apartheid in South Africa, and also what we've been exhibited for many years in America, whereby Africans, they are treated as if they are treated of a lesser god. And this has brought about the racism up to now, that our future generations, unless we counter this, they are going to see a big breach between the African as black and the white. So what we need to look about is that these theories that have been brought about to try to explain about racism, one of it tries to say about the scientific racism. This approach tends to say that Africans, they are people who need to be entangled and always mistreated, which is contrary to the creation nature. All these races that you are seeing, they are all the aroma of the universe. They are the beauty of the universe, whether white or black. They're the beauty of the universe. We need to engulf it. We need to embrace it, and therefore we need to bring out what is expected of a beautiful world. That's my approach.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Judge, do you want to add something before you conclude the show?
I think I just want to add on something here. And you know, we all believe in one God. And the mysteries of creation is what we see in the differences of color, the skin color. We all come from the same God. And it is not my choice that I'm black, but I have no regrets at all. I have no apologies to make. I'm proud of who I am. Nobody chose to be either black or white or whatever color you are, but you must be proud of who you are. Now, Nelion is talking about what happened in the US and all that. There are some leaders who came in, you know, the likes of Martin Luther King, who spoke eloquently about the issues that the black people are going through. I just want to throw a spanner here. I think the major problem we are having with in Africa is our leaders. It is our leaders who should be championing our rights. But where are they? They are not there. They are only minding about their own pockets. They are not there for us. And I want to quote some words that were said by the Russian president, Mr. Putin. And he said, and I'm sure, I think he had done his own homework very well. He said that the land of Africa is capable of feeding the whole of Europe, the US, and actually the whole world. But he pointed out the problem, and he said the problem is their leaders, their political leaders. So, what can we do moving forward? I think it is the time for our leaders to come up together. Just like Bob Marley sang, Africans must unite. We must unite. And if we unite for a common purpose, we don't need Europe. We don't need US. We are capable. We are able to support our own selves without requiring any help from outside. We have everything that it takes. God has given us all the resources that we need. We are a rich continent. And that is why these guys are always coming to us. Don't think that China is doing us favors. No, they are not. They are coming because they need the resources that we have. Don't make a mistake about that. They need our resources. So, African leaders, please unite the continent and stop thinking about your own pockets.
Well, we are all created in the image of God, and we are fearfully and wonderfully made. All of us, white or black, yellow or blue. We are all children of the same God. And therefore, racism has no place in the 21st century. Here at the situation, we condemn racism and what is happening in China and all over the world against the blacks with the strongest terms it deserved, or it deserves. And therefore, we are now calling upon our president, Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, to move with speed to expedite the process of repatriating Kenyans who are suffering in China back to the country. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Situation. Follow us on Twitter and follow our Facebook page as well at The Situation Kenya.